rights and democracy and all that issues, because most of these issues were already there incorporated in our previous constitution. Probably the only change that or the concern that we have right now is how the federalism issue will be addressed in the new constitution, and how the problems of the past that we have faced, the problems related to the 1990 constitution and probably the interim constitution, will be addressed when we have this new constitution. So I would like to, I would agree to what Professor Floodman has said about the importance of compromising when preparing a document like this for the benefit of everyone. Yes, we need to compromise when we are preparing a consensus document. I would also agree when he stated that, of course, the indigenous people would have some extra special rights when a new constitution could be made, is made. You know, that's also very appreciated. And probably our case is slightly different from the Yugoslavian experience, but the message is well taken that democracy, human rights, and freedom should always be incorporated in any international law or constitution. And the issue about federalism not guaranteeing democracy, well, our experience in this part of the world has said that even democracy doesn't guarantee democracy. We've had democratic setup and systems in South Asia and all these countries. You know, the biggest, the largest democracy or whatnot, but still, you know, there's no democracy or human rights for that matter. But you know, it was a very great general perspective that he shared about international law. Professor Arianto especially highlighted the role of Auditor General's office. That's what we call it out here, Supreme Audit Institution. We've been having this Supreme Audit Institution for ages now. In the Panchayat Constitution, in the 1990 Constitution, in the interim Constitution. So this institution is not new, and it's been carrying out its work every year, I would say quite efficiently. But the main problem is its recommendations are not well taken care of. It's kind of an institution who kind of tries to bark but doesn't bite. Comes out with great ideas and recommendation, but there's no one there to follow it up. So that's one problem that we have about this transparency enhancing institution like Auditor General and anti-corruption agencies in Nepal. Well, about the appointment and composition of this transparency enhancing institution in Nepal, there is a big problem. Currently, we have a constitutional council which you know, sits to finalize appointment to the positions of commissioners and chiefs of these constitutional bodies like Public Service Commission, Auditor General, the anti-corruption agencies. And usually I think this is a general practice, but it could be a special case for Nepal when there is a coalition government, when there are 4, 5, 6, 7 political parties in power. Of course, all these positions will have to be shared. So, you know, the so-called independent and, you know, constitutional bodies always do get tinted with political colors when government makes appointments. So that's another problem that we have with the political system right now. Basically, when we are preparing a new constitution, I would like to highlight few issues that probably, if is taken care of, would make a better sense. The first and the foremost important issue is the balance and the separation of power between different organizations. We've been having debates about the role of the President's office. We do have debates about the role of Public Accounts Commission at times when it exceeds its role in exercising executive authority. Same with the case with the Parliament when it tries to overshadow the role of the judiciary. So this is a fundamental problem that we have faced since many years, and if we are to prepare a good constitution, this is one point that we need to address. And another important issue is the issue of political accountability. We've had two people's movement in 20 years. Basically, I would say they are related to lack of political accountability and the frustration that was generated because of that. So these movements can repeat again, and the constitution that we might prepare might not be able to stop another people's revolution. So if we are far-sighted, if we are thinking about the future, the present interim constitution and the 1919 constitution, both of which lacked any special measures on political accountability or political transparency or integrity of the politician, that has to be taken care of. Probably we need to think about the role of ombudsman, which is not there which was not there in the 1990 constitution and the present constitution. The role of ombudsman has been very positive in different countries of the world. So probably I think there's been very less debate in the CA about the role of ombudsman. So if the CA could think about discussing this, probably it could be one institution which enhances transparency of the whole governance structure. Besides that, well, I would say the exercise that's taking place today, for last 3 days, is a good exercise. We've had a lot of foreign experts here. My concern would be how to blend in what comes out from this into our CA's exercise. At the end of the conference, some concrete mechanism has to be devised where some fruitful ideas or some great experience that others have had in different parts of the world, Nepal also takes in. So that's one advice I would like to put forward to the organizers of this conference. And with your permission, I would like to end it. Thank you.
I thank Mr. Ashish Thapa, and want to give time to Ms. Sherry.
Transparency, but he said, how do we interpret and apply international law, specifically concerned with transparency and accountability with respect to state structures, institutions, and bodies? I think the answer, and this comes out in Professor Floodman and Professor, I would like to sort of, when I look at the presentations today, and I like to categorize things because that's how my mind works, I think Professor Floodman really talked about content of human rights and separation of powers, and I felt that Professor Arinato was focusing on more of the structure that goes with that on separation of powers and the auditing with respect to accountability and transparency, and it was a really nice balance, I think, to hear. I want to focus on the themes of, first of all, the overlying theme that was raised by the corruption, and it was pointed out by my fellow commentator that no one really talked about corruption per se, but I think the reason that you put in structures and that you make sure that you deal with these is because you want to avoid or eliminate corruption. And so we need to look, I think, at the overall themes to our diversity of Nepal when you're setting up your structures. Separation of powers is very important, and within that, independence of the judiciary, I want to focus on myself, which was also raised by one of my commentators. Fundamental rights and also federalism were raised. I think just generally with the diversity, with respect to anything I'm going to say after this, no matter what kind of a body or institution that you're going to create in the country of Nepal, given its diversity, it is imperative that on those bodies you have representatives from all of the different groups, or that are people who are capable of representing the interests of those groups. And I think Professor Floodman pointed out that whether or not a particular group is sitting directly at a table, or whether they are voicing an issue, you must in fact take into consideration their interests if you want your statements to be followed by the people. There's dissent within that paper about who should interpret the Constitution of Nepal, and you need yesterday in one of the sessions, Professor, just forget her name, Shi Sheng, made a very good comment. There are many ways of skinning a cat, and you could either have total independence of judiciary and all the power there to interpret a constitution, or you can have, if you put both of if you put the power to interpret to enact the law and interpret the law in one body, being a legislature, you have no separation of powers. And yesterday she said, I thought quite eloquently and reasonably, that if for whatever reason, historically or otherwise, Nepal doesn't feel that the court is the place, the existing court is a place to put that power of interpretation, then to make sure you have separation of powers, what you need to do is create another body, whatever body that is you'd like to have. So just because you don't want to put it within the existing court structure, one that you might create the courts, you can create another body, such as Professor Arianatol pointed out. In Indonesia, they have a constitutional court, as does South Africa. You could name it something else, but again, that body you must make sure is inclusive. It has representation from all of the different groups in Nepal, and ought to be independent, whatever that body is. And that refers to separation of powers. The majority of their writing needs to be looked at in the new constitution, because that itself will ensure transparency and accountability. It'll be easier to interpret. Finally, with respect to federalism, again, I just want to say that with respect to transparency, whatever mechanisms are implemented, they need to be implemented if you have a federal system at both the national and subnational level. So that's really important to keep in mind. I think just to conclude, I want to reiterate what Mr. Thapa said at the end, is that what I do hope, because this has been a wonderful 3 days, and I want to thank the conference organizers, is at the end of this conference that they take all of these sort of the papers, the information, and all of the input that's been received from the participants from the floor, and somehow be able to come to some kind of report that they could then submit to the CA, Constitutional Committee perhaps, to help to sort of guide them in the writing of the Constitution Bill. Thank you very much.
I thank Ms. Shetty for her comments, and now I would like to open floor. So, Madam.
I am P.K. Manandar, President of the organization called CENAR. My question is to our paper presenter, Professor Lordman. My question is very precise. That is, how important it is to address the issues of human rights from the perspective of self-determination and autonomy of the region. Since the internal groups or the people from the province or state, they might have their own culture, religion, and whatnot. So the people may have the apprehension of separation of the states. So since you have the experience of Northern Ireland, how important it is to address the issue of self-determination and autonomy? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Vijay Mainali, and by profession I'm a lawyer. My questions to Professor Paul. As you have wrote in your paper, if I understand correctly, in your last page, that's the federalism is not better than democracy. So my question is that state in the country. So now it is not possible to break down these things and unitary system and something different type of system. So if you have any idea as an expert that you have been working in different part of the world, what types of federalism that could be accommodate everybody and acceptance for all the Nepalese people, So I would like to ask you these questions, and even that our Nepalese team are not very much perfect in the cricket playing, but we can play in the different condition and different weather. So I want to ask this question for you. And next one, the international model. It's very difficult, the Brazilian pronunciation like this, Nanto, and a professor. This is a very good model, could be in our country, because we have already the Auditor General and all these things, as our commentator already mentioned. But we need some, injection, to inject everybody, every Nepalese, to eradicate the corruption. Thus, we need some mechanism. So if you put some mechanism to Nepalese guy, and it's because I'm saying our country, we are only focusing always in the government officials that they have corrected. But the way we are, promoting the corruption in different way.
Could you please
And thirdly,
summarize your question?
Thirdly, thank you.
From the Limbuan, especially my introduction, I brought some arms group to the peace process, which is called Kirat Janabadi Bokar Party before 2 months ago. Limbuan is especially working for how to build peace process in Nepal and ensure the Limbuan autonomy in eastern part of Nepal, which is specifies 9 districts, eastern part of the Arun Koshi River, Sangkhwa River, and there is very lacking about some certain provision of the federal states. No one talking about the reciprocal power, how to establish and exist in federal states. Unless establishing reciprocal power, the federal government or state government cannot be sustained and cannot be fully democratic side. That's why reciprocal power will be shared between central government and provision or state government. This is the main thing to exercise the federal system of government and federal state of Nepal. There's a better the existence of the residual power is equal sharing central government and provincial or state government.
Thank you very much for your comment. Yeah.
Year is began, so I'd like to say happy and I wish you all the best and greetings to national and international guests. I'm from Hilo region. I'm advocate for Patamang, and my question is related to Professor Prowl about ILO 169. In your delivery, I did not get clear answer, so I would like to ask, in Nepalese law, a huge number of Hilo regions area is covered by national park in the name of preservation, and many indigenous and tribal peoples are living in those areas. And in ILO 169, its interpretation is first priority and privileges to the tribal or indigenous people to use natural resources. But the contradiction is there. National park law doesn't allow those people to use natural resources. So, yes, I'm going to conclude, sir. So, as a expert, then how we can address these issues in our new constitution? I'm waiting for this question answer from Professor Prowl. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to have a short comment about the separation of powers. In the transcript, it lay out 3 powers, 2 powers, 3 powers, 4 powers, 5 powers. As a matter of fact, Taiwan may be constitutional democracy exercising separation of 5 powers for the longest time, starting from 47 up to now. Dr. Sun Yat-sen, the founder of the Republic, actually has a fantasy that we should establish a civil servant regulators that is going to be completely neutral and independent, and also an auditor of the overseeing the function of the civil servant. So we have been in the constitutional democracy having separation of 5 powers. So whenever somebody mentioned about 18-1 power to the traditional 3 powers, or 2, I worry. Why? The operation in our constitution has been chaotic. Because once you add up 1 power to the existing separation of powers, you add up conflicts among powers. So it's up to the Constitution to regulate so many bilateral relationships. Imagine you have 3 members in your home. So you regulate 3 persons and 3 relationships. But when the number get up to 5, you only add 2 persons in your home, say 5 members. Then the Constitution has to regulate 5 persons but 10 bilateral relationships. You have bilateral relationships. So the Constitution get very, very complicated out of that. So of course, there may be some benefit adding 1 power to the existing separation of 2 powers or 3 powers. But we need to bear that attention very much. There are institutional costs to that. Thank you.
Anybody wants to comment or question? Thank you very much. I didn't see any hands raised. Thank you. So now I would like to give time to our speaker. There are a couple of questions to Professor Paul Floodman.
Am I wrong in thinking, if I take yourself first, that you're talking of representation? A major thing, and it isn't that long ago, and I think it's appropriate from my standpoint to use a UK example. In the 1997 election, there was a major attempt to get more women to become members of Parliament. The part of the thing, when the Labour government was elected, the whole Labour group of MPs were taken away to a college to educate them how to become how to be MPs. That's the end sequence. Now I come to the beginning point. Schools within the United Kingdom incorporate within their particular curriculum an idea of citizenship. The whole point about it is they needed to be educated about the political system, to understand local democracy, then moving, well, we don't, we have 2 separate. We have, the only local democracy in its truest sense is a meeting of the local representatives, and that's to take issues in, not to decide them. What we both call it, we call them local government, some call them municipal organisations, but individual citizens can go there, etc., to represent. You don't have to be elected. But I think the point that you're trying to make, and hopefully it is a part answer, is this constitution, I think it was the Prime Minister made the point that it's being dealt with from bottom up. There is an educational process of people talking, even, and I can't remember somebody being brought in a taxi and the taxi driver talking about the Constitution. That might sound comical, but it's not, it's healthy, in the sense that the very people who are affected by it are the ones that need to know about it. Your concern, and a major concern, and please don't think I'm ignoring that there is a major difference between the involvement of women within Nepal, within any structure outside the family framework, and sometimes there is opposition to them doing it. The only way I think I can answer it is education is the biggest key, so that if people know what they can and cannot do, and I'm talking specifically about women, there is a chance that they may represent themselves, attempt to represent themselves, but it's going to be a slow process. You know, those of us, and I'm talking both male and female, those of us that classify ourselves as informed have taken years to get to know what we're talking about. And we've got to expect to some extent that those that you want to be part of the political equation, it's going to take a period of time, because there's a fear factor. And the fear factor is great. Will they be acknowledged on the sense of being a woman in the first instance? And I'm not being discriminatory. Yeah, it's great this, isn't it? You know, time, you know, I'm trying to think of Justice Holberg saying, I don't need a watch, I only need a calendar. But I think that's one of the greatest ones. I'm going to use that. So please accept it in the sincerest way I can do. I think education is the particular point, but I'm not the only one that's mentioned it. There are other speakers that have said, you've got to bring it through the educational process. And if I might be, not being clever, but human rights includes the right to be educated to a certain age. That, one would hope, is both male and female. And from that, and it is going to be a relatively slow process, because I think there are those that want to be part and parcel of it in the foreseeable future, but we want the future generations to sort of believe that it is practical for them to become a part. That restructure, if you allocate financial resources for them to use, that's the important point. If central government won't allocate financial resources to a local community, whether it's a regional, whether it's a local organisation, then those regional local organisations are totally impotent. What's the point in having them? And there has been a big issue about centralisation with local government in the UK. And it's always a fight. It's actually a product or a consequence of Margaret Thatcher's period, because she didn't like local democracies, so she took money away from them and decided things from the centre. But I'm not condemning her. It was a clever political ploy. But it takes time to bring it back. The answer to, in part, in one sense, is that to be denied a right to natural resources is an infringement of your human rights. So again, coming back, and I'm not being clever in the type of an answer, it's a point that anything that occurs in nature is people are entitled to. However, even we pay for water in the UK. And I live in the northwest of England, and we have the biggest rainfall that anywhere in the country gets. And we actually sell the water to other parts of the UK. So responsibilities allocated to local and regional organisations, I would hope that an answer would be forthcoming in the foreseeable future. But I haven't got a magic wand. And that is the only thing, is I can only answer a question, but I can't give you the cure to the answer. That's all. Okay?
Thank you very much, Professor Paul Floodman. Now, I want to respond to the questions. 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. First one, to the first question. Actually, when we designed this state organ under the new constitution, we also proposed to the People Consultative Assembly, who have the power to amend the constitution, also ombudsman, to be included as a state organ in the constitution. But in fact, only one new institution, like the General Election Commission here, this is new one. And then the other one is also, maybe you could see this also as one of the transparency institution, the Judicial Commission. And secondly, to Professor Rongye, maybe, I also mentioned in my presentation about some practice on the expression of division of powers. So I should add maybe in the fourth one, not only France in the 16th century, but also Taiwan since 1947. That's also I haven't included in my pointers. Okay, thank you very much, because very sharp. Thank you
for your response. I will take a few minutes. I am hungry, so I believe you are also hungry. So I think those comments have enriched our discussion, I believe, as well as I want to thank friends who commented or took floor floor and to give inputs or put some very, very pertinent questions before the speakers. Those are very important for Nepal at the moment, because we are dealing, and there are controversy as well as misunderstanding among the political parties also. On the discussion. The first one is what is human rights and what is indigenous rights, why we are people who belong to a group, they try to interpret international law in favor of the group, yeah, or the person. That's why sometimes this is the problematic, or this creates problems. That's why generally I want to divide these international laws into three categories. I don't see any problem in incorporating individual rights in the Constitution, because they are comfortable for lawmakers, for advocates, and even for the mainstream people who are enjoying powers. But I see problem when we raise the question of collective rights. It's a big question, and I think the madam raised the question of right to self-determination and autonomy. That's the crux point of the problem. That's the crux of the problem. And what I see, I'm not a student of lawyer, but I have experience of negotiating on the draft declaration on the rights of indigenous peoples in United Nations, as well as I spent 7 years as a vice chairperson of UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, and I lobbied for the rights of indigenous peoples. Finally, we got this text declaration adopted by the General Assembly. And that's why every person should have the right to decide on her or his matter. And in the same way, the group should have the right. That's my understanding. And in the Nepalese context, as well as in international fora, I see that there's the difference in the perspective, how to see this right. And the second thing, I want to bring one issue of restructuring of state in Nepal. Some is questioning on the restructuring from indigenous or from ethnic perspective, and some are advocating to put the restructure according to the class, not ethnic group. So how we need how to define this concept of restructuring? For me, socio-economic formation is the background, is the structure of our society, and the state is the reflection of our socio-economic formation. That's the gap, that's the problem. And how to accommodate this diversity aspect of the country into the state structure? That's the main, I think, problem of our constitution making. And Nepal as well as developing countries. So the point comes then, what kind of nation we want? Is a state nation or nation state or multinational state? And I think we need to design our audit mechanism according to the society, structure of the society, and that's our challenge, and we have to face this challenge. Now think, what kind of democracy and what kind of government? Is consensus or this West ministerial model of democracy or presidential? Maybe we need in Nepal different kind of democracy that ensures the representation, access as well as control of different groups. That's why we should not, I think, fear from federalism, but we have to think how to make this federalism a proper that reflect democratic values in the system. I think in front of us. With these words, I would like to again thank you all the speakers as well commentators and my wonderful friends who are sitting in front of us and listening different perspectives, different ideas, as well as I believe you have some questions, but you could not, there was no time and you could not express all. Maybe during lunch and other time we can share our other great ideas. And of course there are some questions not answered by the speakers also. So they may, friends who have still questions, they may come to the speakers and they discuss with them. Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you.